Welcome, mud wrestlers, and the pig we're wrestling with today is private or public. This is a reaction, really, to an article that I read in the latest Philosophy Now magazine, issue 158, October 23, by Georgia Arkell, which I enjoyed. Is called Hannah Arendt and the Banality of Evil. The background to this is Hannah Arendt's assessment of the Nazi criminal Adolf Eichmann's trial and her conclusion that evil can indeed be banal. It could be the office worker signing a paper that consigns thousands of people to death, for example. In any case, here's the sentence that leapt out at me. And this is taken from Arendt's The Human Condition of 1958. In Arkell's words, she, Hannah, argues that the public domain's increasing interest in private concerns furnished the preconditions for totalitarianism. In her opinion, Nazism utterly reshaped the link between the public and the private by excessively privatizing the public sphere and depriving it of its original human virtuousness. So this would make Eichmann out to be what we would call a private man. But help me to understand this. The public domain's increasing interest in private concerns furnished the preconditions for totalitarianism. What does that mean? Arendt seems to suggest that privatizing what is public is creating a seedbed for totalitarianism. So there should be some kind of barrier between the private and the public. When I read this, I instantly thought of my father, who died many years ago, and who voted for, well, I don't know. He never told us, nor did my mother. As for their innate sexualities, not a word was breathed about that. Maybe in a completely loving relationship and an intimate one, there would be no secrets, nothing would be private. Is that a good idea? Anyway, my question was, how come now, 2023, it seems to be fashionable to exhibit publicly what was once private? This principally would be your voting intentions and your sexuality. Question, is this a good thing? I saw a video from possibly TikTok, one of those, where a personage was bemoaning the fact that they didn't have a day to celebrate them. We now live in a world where we do celebrate people's sexuality openly. Is this a good thing? I'm not suggesting we drive considered perversions back to the underground, but on the other hand, do I really want to know about your private life? Should there be a private life? The liberal thinker Jeremy Bentham came up with the idea of the prison where a guard sits in a sort of observation post in the centre and he can look directly into the cells, but the prisoners will never know whether they're being observed or not. And that's from a liberal. That sounds horrific to me. That sounds like a sort of God complex. I've always been suspicious as well of this Freudian idea that we have to disinter our terrible thoughts, our subconscious longings, traumatic events of our childhood. No, just keep them private. That's a possibility, isn't it? Is that healthy? Of course, nobody wants to be an idiot, and the original meaning of idiot, uneducated or ignorant person, from Latin. But wait, all this comes from the Greek idiotes, which means a layman, a person lacking professional skill. What that means is that somebody wasn't a writer or a soldier or a skillful artisan, and the core meaning is private person. So there you go. An idiot is a private person. But of course, in this case, you're talking about taking part in public affairs. Do you have a say? Do you have a vote? Do you have an opinion? Does your opinion count? I saw a rather excellent film about the rise of Nazism in Germany, and it contained a chilling scene where, in just an ordinary bureaucratic office, one of the middle managers approaches one of the workers and says, "I see you have not joined the party yet, Fritz. It is beginning to look obvious. And that's why we have a secret vote. Though you wouldn't know it these days. How about if nobody has an opinion? That would be nice. We could just leave the opinions to the ruling classes and they could do what's good for us." Plato was up for that in his ship of state model. Zizek, our modern communist friend, is also up for that. His argument is that the politicians do the politics and you lot can just get on with your lives. Never mind transparency and accountability and all that kind of stuff. Well, Mr. Zizek's arguments don't convince me, though they did make my eyebrows raise for half a second. Sounds like quite a good deal, doesn't it? Just watching TV, playing sport, getting on with things, while the real decisions are taken sort of privately, though they will affect the public. Well, there you go. I promised you philosophy, and that's what you got. We could take this private-public distinction further and talk about the idea that philosophers have of our inner world, of our qualia, as they've been called, the actual feeling of redness, rather than knowing all about red and what it is. No, you have to actually see it. That's an internal thing. So how do we know that what I mean by red, everybody else means by red? And now we're in the realms of Wittgenstein's private language argument, and even Kant's struggling to see what of the objective world we can actually have access to. But that's all very complicated and worth an entire segment to itself, which, who knows, one day I might do.